Hello, everybody, and welcome to Spidercast, Episode 2. Officially, Episode 2 of Spidercast. And I'm here this time. Isn't that pretty cool? I'm actually here. You can see me. You know, I got these new glasses today, these new blue screen glasses that are supposed to protect you from the blue screen on your computer. Protect your eyes, folks. The eye strain is real. So, thought I'd come on the camera, see you guys, say hi. I never do this, so let's do it. Anyway, welcome to Spidercast Episode 2, the Spider Queen podcast, where we are reviewing the Spider Queen episodes and talking about them behind the scenes, because how fun. And I have like this crazy hair going, because I've been in the booth all day, literally all day. Okay, let us begin Episode 2, Bakashi Returns, A Warning for the Future. The second episode in Spider Queen, but also the second longest in the first part of Spider Queen. As we get on further in Season 1, and definitely in Season 2, at least halfway through Season 2, the episodes start getting to very similar lengths. So, you know, they're not different. Oh, here we go. Episode 2, and of course, it's not in YouTube 1080p HD, but it is on the Spider Queen Part 1 full 2-hour-long video. It should be in full 1080p YouTube HD. So the prologue for this is not very good for this episode. It's a pretty long prologue, and it was, I don't know, it was bad. I've toyed with the ideas of removing the prologues from some of these, but Episode 1 of Spider Queen was released August 27, 2021, and Episode 2 was released January 21st, 2022, so there was a good long period of time between the two episodes. So that's part of the reason why I left the prologue in there, because it had been so long since the last episode. Okay, we'll skip through the rest of this prologue because we don't really need to know what happened. All right, okay, here we go. The ending scene of Season 1 where they're talking about here comes Bakashi. Is it the cursed Bakashi from the end, or did I redo this scene for this episode? Oh, I redid the scene. Thank you. All right. The audio is definitely the same though. I didn't re-record the audio for that scene. So here is the beginning, which was the end of the episode from the last episode, but started this one. So this chamber, I don't know if I mentioned this in the last podcast. So Orzic's bed chamber is actually just the hospital with the beds photoshopped out. And then I took the sky in the background and made it dark to make it look like it was night, and it doesn't really look like night. So here we go. Bakashi returns. A warning for the future. Bakashi's voice really wasn't figured out at this point.
Is that really you, Bakashi? Yes, sir. You sure look
Okay, I don't know why Bakashi sounds. The levels are so off in this.
What happened out there?
So this was the first episode that we had open mouths in, and hadn't quite figured out the trick yet. So every time the character talks, their character moves. I have been following a lead. So Bakashi is sort of retelling the stories of what happened in Episode 0, the OVA, the pilot, which if you didn't listen, because people might not have watched it, so he's sort of retelling them, and he's telling them about what happened. And so here's an important little thing that we just introduced here in this episode, as I was very rudely talking over Bakashi. Bakashi is talking about the 4 legendary coordinates, and this is the first time that they have been brought up in the show, in the series. Actually, they might have been brought up in Episode 1 or in the prologue, I can't remember. But my light is like fading, and like I can move it, but wow, it's so bright. I do not know how streamers do this, but the 4 legendary coordinates are these 4 mythical divine beings, and there's one for each corner of the universe. There's the legendary coordinate of the north, the legendary coordinate of the south, the legendary coordinate of the east, and the legendary coordinate of the west. And the legendary coordinate of the north, as they're talking about, is Flarion, who is a Fyron from the planet of fire and ice, and is known to be the strongest, most wicked, and evil of the four coordinates. And Bakashi is saying that he learned about that Flarion actually exists, and this is not just a legend, they are real people. And then he talks about how he didn't realize that his own master, his own grandfather, was the legendary coordinate of the East. And so they're talking about how, Bakashi's talking about how Flarion is trying to take over the universe and become like the supreme ruler, and that, without another legendary coordinate, it's going to be very difficult to take out Flarion. And they're like, oh, the only one that can take him out is the legendary coordinate of the East. And then Bakashi's like, well, that was my master and he's dead, so what are we going to do? And that sort of explains why Bakashi sent Mycen to Spideria. Look at this nice little space shot, which is like the most reused shot in Spider Queen. And Bakashi has this long monologue that goes on for a while, and just talks more about the mythology of it. Oh my gosh. The original Flarion concept is so terrifying. We didn't have the Flarion character was not made yet, but the character design for Flarion was not made by episode 2. So it's almost kind of like mythical and like spooky that in the cutaway scene, we just see like this really these spooky eyes and this like fire that makes his face, and it's just terrifying. But this is like the first appearance of Flarion, and it's like this terrifying silhouette of what the villain looks like, but it's not actually what the villain looks like, but it's supposed to be terrifying, and it genuinely is terrifying. Yeah, okay. He's going to come to Spideria, and he's going to destroy it, but there's going to be time. Bakashi says there's going to be a lot of time before Flarion gets here because he's on the other side of the universe doing stuff. So we don't have to worry. It's not an immediate threat, and that's why I wanted to train Mycen. So we'll keep going. Well, we're gonna skip through the rest of this scene here.
But he can't even use magic. Neither could I when I first started training. I saw firsthand.
This line of Orzic's really, Orzic Spider King is really important because it really explains Bakashi's backstory. Behind those eyes is a man who is suffering from the pain of his past. And you get to learn more about that pain and the legacy of Bakashi, which is coming out very soon, and you're definitely going to watch it. Listen to it. And Orzic explains how, Bakashi respects Orzic, and you'll learn more about that in the legacy of Bakashi. And that's why Bakashi is there on Spideria. Bakashi has no, duty to be there. He has no ties to be there. He's not a member of the military. He's just there out of respect for Orzic, who took him in when he had nobody. And here's our first eye catch. Well, not the first eye catch. So we have Mycen and Spider Queen in the castle, in the throne room. And they are proportionally not at the right size that they need to be at. No one in this scene, we haven't got that. We haven't figured that part out yet in this point in the editing process, but the characters are much bigger than what than the setting. Bakashi is very tall, and for some reason is moving. He's still moving, but he's very tall. Bakashi he's almost as tall as that pillar. Bakashi is like as tall as that pillar. So yeah, we didn't get the size proportions right yet.
Hey, haven't I seen you somewhere before, Bak?
All right, so the joke. Two things happen here. One is that in this scene, Mycen says, "Oh, Bakashi, haven't I seen you somewhere before?" Which is important because in the Battle of Fire and Ice, Mycen did know Bakashi, and Bakashi sent Mycen to Spideria, but Mycen is suffering from memory loss and doesn't really remember that. But he's gonna say, "Oh yeah, I thought I saw you before," and then
Yes, sir.
obviously Bakashi goes, "No, you didn't. No, you didn't." And the other joke there is right here. I'm trying to get it to play, but I can't get the Google Translate to work. Is that he calls Bakashi Baka, which is, I'm pretty sure it's either like idiot or dumb or moron or stupid or something in Japanese, which is it's just sort of a little joke for those that know. Right, what she said. If you say so, Doc. So they learn that Bakashi's going to take them and they're going to train with Bakashi Tenzo. Tenzo means teacher in the Spiderian language. There is a whole Spiderian language sheet that had been written out and the different characters in the Spiderian language. And there are still plans to go further with the Spiderian language, but it does exist. And Tenzo is one of the words. And they learn that he's very, very strong, so they want to go train with him. And now they're going to go start their training. And we get this fun little transition scene. And now they're down in the dungeon. The secret training dojo deep within the depths of Spider Queen's castle. You know, and it's just really cool. Dojo it's kind of like Breath of the Wildy, but I think it's really cool, and I love what the designer did with this background. And this is the training dojo where Mycen and Spider Queen get to train for the next couple of years. In the story, it originally says month, but we're changing it to years. All right, you heard it here first, folks. Mycen and Spider Queen trained for more than 2 months. We're gonna say it was 2 years. It is the new meta. What's the word that I'm looking for? We're retconning it in. We're retconning in that instead of 2 months that they trained with Bakashi, they trained with Bakashi for 2 years. That's getting retconned in for later purposes.
A wizard warrior is a warrior who has trained in both
The
art of
most
song
intense
and
training you will ever experience.
physical strength.
The reverb in this scene is crazy. I don't know what I was thinking.
Without question.
And they all look really blurry.
A wizard warrior must obey the commands of their master.
That sounded really good.
Is the way of the wizard warrior.
So they bring up the concept of wizard warriors now, which is sort of a concept that has, and of course Mycen doesn't know what it is, right? What? And then Spider Queen's like, "Oh, we learned about that in school." Wizard warriors is a concept that I brought up early on. You know, early on in this, it was like training to be a wizard warrior. That is what the ultimate goal is, and it's kind of lost. Like it's one of those things that got introduced early into the show, and it was like really crucial early in the show, and it just didn't sort of lost later in the show. Like it what was this called? Like what? You know, when did this ever happen? You know, it's one of those lost things. It's like Sakura in Naruto, how they always say at the beginning she's going to be like a genjutsu prodigy, and then that just never follows through, right? Like after that, whoever said that at the beginning, I was like, oh, no, never followed through that. There was like the Akatsuki's rings that never happened. There was a whole Team Rocket storyline in Pokemon Black and White that built up for many episodes, and then there was like that devastating earthquake in Japan, and those episodes got canceled. So it was like it was something that got built up and then just sort of fizzled away into the ether. The concept will definitely, most likely be brought up later down the line in Spider Queen, but I feel like this is one of the only episodes that it's mentioned in. Yes, and the Wizard Warrior is the one that uses their power. Basically, the basic idea of a Wizard Warrior is that they are warrior.
I don't think I can do it. I don't even know the basics.
So a Wizard Warrior is a warrior who's trained about the art of physical magic and physical ability and magic, which is an ability known as mastering the balance, and that is something that's really key. That is something that is talked about for the rest of the show, because basically the idea is you want to be able to master both your magical ability and your physical ability. Like, you want to be able to combine both of them together, because when you can do that, you can use power that's unrivaled in the universe. And that's what everyone is trying to do. They're all trying to master the balance. And to become a wizard warrior is to master the balance. And Bakashi explains that you're born with a talent, with either a talent in physical combat, or you're born with a talent in your magical ability. And then the trick of being a wizard warrior is learning how to balance both of those skills together to create an ultimate power. Now, there are some races in the universe, like the elves, who are born with a natural ability to master the balance. And that becomes a key issue later in the show, as you learn about the first and second intergalactic wars and all of the other tragic events that happen. That's really important, and they spend a lot of time learning how to master, just talking about mastering the balance. And Bakashi has mastered the balance. So basically, a wizard warrior is a warrior who mastered the balance, and then they are hired on by kingdoms, and their kingdom uses the wizard warrior for, what they please, to do whatever they please with. And Bakashi explains how there aren't many wizard warriors left, and that the wizard warriors have a bad rap because their leader can have them do anything. But again, wizard warriors kind of fizzles out. The idea of a wizard warrior fizzles out. And then Spider Queen's like, well, what if the master makes you do something that you don't want to do? And Bakashi explains that the wizard warriors on Spideria are assigned to protect the peace of the kingdom. And then he goes forward to pretty much say what I said. So Bakashi spends most of this episode explaining the training and what they're going to do. And what he's basically saying is Spider Queen has an incredible knack for magic. She is very talented with magic, and her skill is very high. But when it comes to her physical combat, her physical abilities, they're very low. She does not know how to fight in a physical fight in martial arts or anything. Mycen, on the other hand, is the complete opposite, where Mycen has a natural ability for having been untrained, has a natural ability for fighting, a natural ability for martial arts, and is unhumanly strong. But when it comes to magic, Mycen doesn't really have any. So they're sort of opposites. And Bakashi explains that's going to make them good training partners because, one is good at the other, one is good at, what I'm trying to say. So Bakashi is really talking about that. Oh, and that brings to another big thing that is brought up in this episode, and I accidentally just jumped backwards. I don't know how that happened. Another important thing that's brought up in this episode, and that is Zar. And I might have mentioned that in the previous Spider-Cast. And your Zar is the energy that you use, is the energy inside you that allows you to use magic. It is mana. A lot of mana in a lot of wizarding fantasy novels, Magicka in the Elder Scrolls. It's your chakra, like in Naruto, your ki in Dragon Ball. It's that energy inside of you that allows you to use the magic that you can do. And that's what it is in this universe. It is called Zar. It's taken from wizard, the Zar. So Bakashi explains another really important thing is Zar control and how to control it, and how you can use the Zar, how you can release Zar from your body, how you can gather Zar. And that's another big part of this episode. And he also explains the different Zar types in this episode too. He might not, but I think he does. Definitely does. And so, everybody in the universe has the inherent ability to use magic, right? Everyone does. They all have Zar. It flows through everybody, and they all have the ability to use magic. However, each sort of race has a magic type that is assigned to them. Not assigned to them, but a magic type that they excel at. Like the Spiderians have a poison magic type. They excel at poison magic. They can do crazy poison techniques. And like the Icians, they excel at ice type magic. And there's a whole scale and power scale of which magic types are more effective against other magic types, and which ones are rare and which ones are supremely powerful. But I think he explains a little bit of that too. And that can be difficult. And they sort of explain that Mycen, we can't teach Mycen his Zar. Oh, well, that's not revealed yet in this episode. Ooh, jumping the gun. So they talk more about their training. And then Orzic and Spider-Doc have their own sort of side scene here. And Orzic explains, because Orzic and Spider-Doc and Bakashi all have They all know. They all know that Mycen is not Spiderian. They all know that Mycen was sent here. Spider Queen doesn't. And so Spider Queen truly believes that Mycen is her younger brother that was sent away to another planet and she just didn't know about him. Which is a crazy thought. But she doesn't know. But everyone else knows. And so Orzic, Spider King, and Spider Doc have their little like aside scene where they're talking about how, oh, is Mycen gonna be a wizard warrior? Are they both gonna be wizard warriors? And Orzic's like, no, only Mycen. The life of a wizard warrior is hard and not fit for the one being queen. Just this long spiel about wizard warriors that again sort of fizzled away in the rest of the show. And here we go. We have this nice close-up shot here of Mycen, Spider Queen, and Bakashi. Again, we didn't really. I haven't really figured out shots. I didn't really figure out the shots in this. When I made the first few episodes, I wasn't thinking as a filmmaker. I was thinking as an audio designer. And then the last, 6, 7, and 8 came out really good. But this episode, we struggle. This episode struggles with framing their shots. And Bakashi explains that in at this point that you can't master both physical strength and magical ability. You can only master one, and that you want to then balance it out, right? And that's what he explains. And Mycen is confused as usual. And now Bakashi gives a demonstration, and it is the Bakakalaka technique, which is the signature technique of the show. And it's his signature technique, the signature technique of the show, and it's one that you can only get by mastering the balance. You can only use it by mastering the balance, and Bakashi warns how incredibly dangerous it is to use this technique because it involves using your physical strength to, like, repel your Tsar out of your body in this giant, like, ball of energy. And that if you're not careful, you can accidentally, release all of your Tsar, which would end up killing you. So Bakashi uses it. Hold on, it hasn't switched over to this scene yet. Oh, okay, interesting.
Spider Queen and Mycen's training.
What was that jump cut? What was that cut? It just fades out and then zooms out. What was that? Wow, that's crazy.
Find out next time on Spider Queen.
That's pretty wild. And at this point, I guess we didn't do the animated scene in that. I guess that's the next episode. And they end with Bakashi about to use the Bakakalaka technique. And then the narrator does a bunch of like, yeah, duh. And we get the credits. Which then became the credits for the rest of the show. The first episode credits were kind of cool, but that was a one and done sort of thing. And then we have the Bakashi, we have like a little Bakashi Omake, it looks like. Oh, it's Bakashi doing the next time. So Spider Queen and Mycen are doing their Omake. Oh my gosh, wait, I love this part. Bakashi Tenzo has a top secret background. And then it's OOB Bakashi Bond. And I made that the James Bond gun swirl. I made that in Pro Tools. I made that in Photoshop. And then we just put Bakashi in there. And I had to pay for the license. I'm pretty sure I had to pay for a license for this music, for the James Bond music. Oh no, maybe I didn't. I don't know. I don't think I did. I take that back. But that was one of my more favorite omake was the OOB Bakashi Bond omake. That was episode 2. Wow, that was episode 2 of the Spider Queen podcast. I know we kind of jumped around. We didn't watch the whole thing. Maybe in the next podcast we'll do that, which will definitely make it a lot easier for me in the editing room to do the whole episode at once and just sit and watch it and enjoy. And hopefully next time we have more members of the cast. But this has been Spidercast episode 2. Bakashi returns. A warning for the future. So we'll leave you with that. And
Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you next time.